Greetings, YouTube. Welcome back to the channel. There are some Havoc loyalists, as I will refer to them in this video, that are going to roll their eyes when they see the title of this video, because they're going to say, look here, dummy. Havoc has always been amazing. It's been you that hasn't given Havoc enough credit. And you know what I say to that? It's really fair criticism. But I think that Havoc is somebody that, especially once Nimgod came into the game, if we're being honest, he just lost some value. I stopped seeing him in Battlegrounds decks. I stopped seeing him really around. I can't tell you the last time that I saw Havoc. It was certainly 2 or 3 seasons ago of Battlegrounds. And yet, Kabam is trying their best to bring this champion back into that of a glow-up. Havoc has my favorite special 3 in terms of damage. I have been in positions, even in the arena, where I have fought so terribly that I am down to under 10% health. And let's say the opponent has 70. So it's like 70% to 5%. And I fire off a special 3 in the corner. Maybe I'm fighting terribly against Juggernaut, for example. And I hit the special 3 and suddenly they're dead. Or they're knocked out. Excuse me, they're not really dead. They're just knocked out. Some people say dead for effect. I don't know. Knocked out. They're knocked out. KO'd. And suddenly the special 3 has won me the match. Out of nowhere. A miracle rebirth. And all I can do is sit back and say, gosh, this is a really good champion. But then I do this poll series on my channel where I'll ask people for their favorite champs in each class, and Havoc won't scratch the top 10. And so he reminds me, there was an old Pittsburgh Steeler named Hines Ward who used to be on my fantasy football team in like the early 2000s when I started fantasy football. And again, I'm sorry that most of you aren't going to care about the story, but long story short, he was always drafted in like the 6th or 7th round, but he would give like 1st through 3rd round production a week. It's just people wouldn't think of him as such. He was almost invisible. In the same way, Havoc isn't somebody that you draft even in a top 10 of mutant class fantasy drafts, but he might be a top 5 champ in terms of value. And I think Kabam wants us, and we're just going to put our profile pic where our store is. Kabam wants us to start embracing Havoc more. And so this month, I call him Balloon Animal Head because it reminds me of like balloon animals on his head. This month, we have the month of Negasonic Teenage Warhead, the Boss 81, a man who took me to 3 rounds and bested me in our Battlegrounds head-to-head. I still am going to have second guessing, not regret necessarily, because it all turned out fine. I'm glad he beat me in some ways because it was cool. But, you know, if I had put down Photon, the Boss 81, put down Photon as a defender, and you had to use thighs instead of Absorbing Man, which was pretty easy to keep your distance with Void, yeah, you probably would have taken at least more health damage. So anyhow, I learned something that day. It would have made no difference, though, other than bragging rights on my standing in the actual season. So I also have to remind myself of that. So in the month that this is the champion that we should really care about most, and this is also a champion that has the Mr. Sinister compatible relic, or at least to the Boss 81 he does. And this was something that eventually, after 3 minutes, I'm just going to go to the end of this, he showed her value on a ton of those Realm of Legends fights. But the amount of hits, the amount of time, pretty standard. Remember, she's a skill defender counter, a bullseye counter, and a Tuma counter. All that she could do. So let's not forget that because she is the first champion released this month, that Silver Sable is technically the most hyped up champ in terms of how much you have to wait, at least. And there are some people out there who are really excited to get a hold of her, and I don't doubt you. Notice how weird or unique this synergy team is. Gamora, Angela, Odin, Hulkling, and Havoc. Now, this is a rank 4 6-star Havoc. Havoc is a champion that kind of reminds me of the non-Hawkeye Ronin. The non-Hawkeye Ronin, most fights, is an average champion. You would never bring him in. But a few times a year, he's beyond God tier because you can stun lock depending on the amount of debuffs on the opponent. You can increase the duration of the stun and just specials over and over again, even if you use like a 4-star. Havoc has really unique utility that can be similar in terms of its value depending on the matchup. And yes, the class advantage here probably helps a little bit too, but maybe not. Let's hide the screen and just see how this Havoc cheese works. Because this is a champion that, again, is not a champion you probably think on paper. I mean, he's not rank 5. He's certainly not ascended. You've got all these really annoying things, including a passive heal block, which of course punishes players that use recoil masteries. And here we go. Look at those plasma detonations. All he's doing is dancing around. The shocks are enough to just detonate the plasma. It sort of reminds me of when I had that happen to me in a different way against Future Ant-Man the first time. I'm like, wait, why am I stunned? Why am I dead? What happened? It also reminds me of Elsa, if you have those recoil masteries. So he has not fired a hit. That is a 0-hit KO against a, Thronebreaker event quest boss? Havoc is becoming even more valuable, and I know that's the case because Kabam has us now get to pull Havoc as a 7-star. And maybe some of you pulled him as a 7-star from a Titan Crystal. I think he's in Titan Crystal. And was like, dang it, well, maybe not anymore. 0 hits. 0-hit KO. Havoc is absurd this month, and he's getting even better. Thanks for watching.